Apparently we're live. Good morning, everyone. Hello. And good
Hello.
morning, Peter, who's joining me from Australia. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Good. And I like to see that you've got your umbraCoffee UDUF t-shirt on.
Yeah, it's actually become almost standard uniform in our office. So, yeah, there's often days where at least 3 or 4 staff show up wearing them. I think we've got quite a few of them. So, there's, when you run a conference, you end up with a lot of merchandise at the end that you sort of don't know what to do with, and it only lasts for 1 year, so you might as well wear it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Amazing. So it's now the official KØBEN Digital uniform.
Oh, we've got one of those too. We have KØBEN t-shirts as well. It's like, yeah, I in our office it kind of cycles through Umbraco t-shirts, UDUF t-shirts, Co-Garden t-shirts. It just depends what the mood is at the time.
Amazing, cool. Marcin's on holiday today, so I'm going at it alone. But of course, we've got a lot to talk about. I think we were already having some discussions before we went live about some of the news from this week. There's been quite a lot of stuff, including stuff that you've been involved in. So I think we've got quite a lot to share. So maybe we should just dive straight in and talk about what we were discussing a second ago, which is a new announcement from the Umbraco world. That's actually the roadmap. Where's it gone? Here we go. This is Umbraco Uno, which Niels teased earlier in the week with a tres dos ... and it has been released on Wednesday. So this is their new SaaS offering, and I think it's designed as a way to help people get started with Umbraco quickly. It's based on Igloo themes. That's right. Created by the wonderful people at WebMind in Sweden, or I think they're called A Little North or something now. But yeah, so this is a theming engine where you can basically press a button and get up and running with a site on Umbraco with themes kind of out of the box. And the pricing is the same as the cloud pricing. So if you're already on cloud and kind of need to get a site up and running quickly, maybe this is a solution for that. What are your thoughts on it, Pete, as an agency owner?
As an agency owner, I can see the positioning of what it's trying to achieve, which basically is to lower the bar of entry into Umbraco, which is basically at the moment it is relegated to developers and to people who generally have to spin up Visual Studio and compile a site and then push it out onto a live server. And I know, having been around Umbraco for bloody ages, like for 15 years or so, that Niels has always mentioned that he's had this like desire to make it the like people's CMS, I guess. It's always been nice for editors, and that's one of the things that's always been a good selling point. But to get it in front of an editor in the first place, it has to pass through an agency, and it's got to pass through some technical hands. And I think what Uno is there to achieve is to introduce the non-techie user to potentially, it's like a gateway drug to Umbraco, I guess, is probably what I would sort of term it as. So yeah, there's but I mean, there was a tweet from Piplo like earlier in the week when they released it saying, congratulations, Niels, on getting this out there. It's been your dream for a very long time. And so yeah, so kudos to Niels for sort of seeing things right through, and the for getting it out there. As an agency owner, I don't know. I'm just really I'm a little afraid that maybe the way that it's been positioned currently is a little bit confusing. I think
that's a valid question, because it's not entirely clear what the positioning of the product is. And I know that I think I saw a tweet from Jacob, CTO at Umbraco, asking, is this trying to tackle WordPress and Squarespace and Wix and these off-the-shelf site builders? And it was kind of weird. We just want to showcase how you can get up and running quickly with Umbraco and see where that fits in the market, rather than Umbraco trying to become an agency building websites for people. But it's very much positioned currently as a self-serve type system. So you create an account and the settings section from the back office is gone. It's a no-code solution to getting a website up and running quickly. There's even a chat in the back office to get help and stuff. So someone's interaction with the product would purely only ever be that Umbraco back office and their website, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you look at it up front, and I saw quite a number of tweets going, you know, I guess it's just they're probably working on the marketing still, because there is just not a massive amount of information up front as to what the limitations of it are. I mean, other than if you look at the feature set, there's like a few things, and then they they say later on, custom code coming soon on some of them. Be really interesting how they do that, like what the implementation of that is. Because essentially,
I think one of the huge if we look at the product page, it says it's fewer steps to launch, so no learning curve, no code needed to get up and running. You've just kind of got something ready to go. You have a website already, which is cool. I can see that saving a lot of people some time. And then the thing that I really like here is the no need to do updates ever. Now, I think this is a deviation from the cloud feature of, oh, your site is updated, you get those patches. Actually, to target some of these people that don't want to worry about code, they're going to do the point releases and those patches as well. And they have the ability to do that on cloud. So there is a kind of value proposition there for certain people. Whether that fits everyone, like an agency, I don't know. I saw this in the chat from Warren about it's kind of designed for print marketing agencies that don't specialize in web but want a brochure website up and running quite quickly. And this concept has existed for a while. As we mentioned, it's based on Igloo themes with some additions on the top. Uskinned, and I can see Mark's joining in the chat. Hey, Mark. Uskinned has existed as well for a long time and has done a similar thing. This is just hosted on Umbraco Cloud. But it would be interesting to see what their plans are with it.
Yeah, the one of the things that I guess is interesting is like how they are going to put this in front of the right people. Because I know, I mean, I'm part of a couple of business masterminds down here in Australia where I'm in amongst, there's some WordPress groups and WordPress agencies and things that are in these organizations. And in some cases, some of these agencies are low code, no code WordPress people using, design tools like Elementor and Divi and all of these like page builders that come for next to nothing and almost free and in some cases free or limited on WordPress. And they love those tools because essentially they give them all of the those block editors and design tools within the WordPress. And the only thing that sort of I guess is kind of I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work in the Umbraco world is that at the moment cloud's still quite expensive in terms of when you want to actually do something. It's just how Umbraco is going to position in that market. And I understand that not everybody likes WordPress and likes those sort of things, but it's but that is the kind of thing that it's got to compete with if you're going for those print/marketing agencies. So and those tools are pretty freaking amazing. If you've ever seen them, they do some pretty amazing things. And at one point, I actually tried to rip Elementor apart and figure out how they could, how we could do the same thing in Umbraco and create this low code, no code style design interface in Umbraco. And I just went, I don't have $1 trillion and 100 developers to do this, but it's like, that's the kind of environment that it's up against. If you're saying, well, okay, they've already lost the Wix/Squarespace battle. That's the kind of thing that it's up against. In terms of like full-blown CMS.
I think you hit a nice point there, which is kind of about the value of Umbraco, which is in a lot of the package ecosystem and the collaborative thing. So it would be nice to see how these two things tie together. Maybe we're going to see the Umbraco flavor of what Wix and WordPress and whatever are trying to do. And yes, maybe it is a bit more expensive, and maybe it's targeted slightly more niche to a shop that wants to use a .NET-based CMS or something. But the gateway drug to the Umbraco world, I think, is a great analogy.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see a proper marketplace in here, though, because there are some really amazing tools that are, community developed or are commercial packages, etc., that would fit well in this sort of space, like Matt Brailsford and Vendor. The Vendor product would be awesome if there was like, oh, you want e-commerce in your Uno install, let's give you e-commerce, and it installs Vendor, and then you've got the templates that work with Uno and Vendor. That's the kind of thing that would love to see, is that sort of thing. And also a theming community that works around the Uno space as well, where the themers are compensated for their work, but also so more like the app stores kind of work, where there's a cut taken off the top, but the themer gets their dues, and then essentially it's bringing people into the Umbraco ecosystem. They're on cloud, they're getting Umbraco's increasing their cloud presence, and everybody wins. I think it's really important that the community as a whole is included in this in some way, or trying to work out how how we can all be symbiotic in the whole thing, and try and there's the commercial Umbraco company, there's the community that does all this great work. Some of it's commercial. Let's try and make this beneficial to everybody. It's kind of, in my opinion, I guess that's what I want to see as an agency owner, because then I can build a business model around that. So that's part of it for me.
I totally agree, and I think there's the kind of HQ and community thing going hand in hand makes a lot of sense. Imagine, I said this before we went live, an Azure marketplace type thing where Microsoft are happy because they sell cloud, and the consumer is happy because they can click a button and get up and running with an amazing solution quickly. But the solution providers are also happy because they are able to reach customers directly and help customers get up and running on their product quickly. So exactly. Vendor or whatever, and getting that running on cloud with a couple clicks would be ace. And it does look like from their roadmap, which has now been updated and is huge. There's a lot of stuff happening now and later, but they're going to do they're working on custom code for Uno, as well as some additional themes, improved widgets, multilingual, and I know that the V8 block editor is what's going to be coming into Uno a little bit later. So hopefully we'll see a bit more, maybe some at least consulting with the community on what kind of stuff we want to see in Uno, and at the same time maybe some community built themes or something as a start to opening this ecosystem up.
Yeah. I guess my main concern as an agency owner is that it doesn't devalue the work that agencies do, because Umbraco competes in a marketplace that is, well, I know the kind of clients I've got. They're enterprise level clients, and they're choosing Umbraco because it competes with the other enterprise CMSs in the space. And I guess it just, for me, the positioning of the product right now could be confusing to those clients, because well, why aren't we just using this? Like, how come we can't use this? And then I've got to kind of explain it to them, and that's I prefer it to be a lot easier to
might actually agree with that as well. There was some feedback that the product page maybe could use some screenshots and some demos to show what the product is and does, and that might make it a bit clearer to people.
Yeah,
let's
umbraco light is what I
yeah,
like. I like it to be seen as umbraco light. You know, not fat umbraco. Yeah.
But let's be fair. I mean, this was launched on Wednesday, so they've already got documentation for it. I'm sure that all of this is going to come, and we'll see more and more stuff coming from it. And whilst we're talking about it, let's just mention you can try and sign up for a free trial right now. I think there's some problems with people getting through. Did you manage to sign up yet?
No, but George, I think his name is, at Umbraco, has been trying pretty hard to work it out for me. And he said, oh, it looks like you just signed up for a standard trial for Umbraco Cloud. And I went, no, I signed up on your page, and it booted me out and told me I had a problem. I've heard of a number of people who have like three, four attempts. I mean, I think I've gone through 3 email addresses trying to get one that doesn't have anything associated with cloud that will let me in to have a look at the trial. So it's like
issues of people that may have had a cloud trial before, and that they're not allowing to create a trial of this, and also people I think the initial load on their servers just trying to spin up enough sites was also a little issue. Anyway, keep trying. But also there's next week Gabriel is going to be doing a webinar on Wednesday 2 p.m. European time to kind of show off Umbraco Uno as well, so we can maybe learn a bit more from there. And I also just quickly wanted to share, Neil's made a nice woodwork version of the logo, which I thought was pretty cool.
He's like turning into you know, he just fiddles in his garage now, I think, with he's got all these amazing woodworking tools that, you know, like I get a bit jealous, to be honest. I watch his Instagram, and you know, he's got these amazing like routers and things like that I'm like going, gee, I want one of those, but I haven't got time for that. But
he obviously he does that talk as part of his keynote where he talks about the enterprise circular saw that he bought, and how it's crazy, why would you spend so much money on this when a handsaw is perfect? But now he's also kind of geeking out on these woodworking tools, and I find that pretty funny.
When you got a passion, you talk about it. It's like you know, I'm enjoying watching anyway, and then I'm sure we'll see even more of that as he progresses. I'm looking forward to it. I think he's building a bartender at the moment, which looks interesting. So
he is. Shall we talk about block editors?
Yes,
because something you did this week is block-esque, a block-esque editor. And
I did a thing.
I think we're gonna see a demo of that. But so actually, I'll mention now. Yesterday we had the virtual Umbraco London meetup, and Joe Glombeck, a fantastic member of our community, I'll just skip ahead a couple slides. He compared all of these new block type editors and what they all are and what they could be. And this is comparing Perplex's content blocks editor, Bento, which we're going to talk about. That's something you've been working on, the grid, doc type grid editor, and the new block list from that's coming in 8.7. But I think there's a huge amount of confusion around what the hell do we mean by a block editor.
Sure.
Because there's various different flavors. For example, Bento is more of a take on the grid, whereas the one that's coming in V87 block list is more of a stacked and nested content-esque editor, and Perplex's one is more of that too. So that's more for designing like row-based layouts where the whole width row is one content block, whereas there's other solutions like the grid and Bento where you can have a bit more flexibility in that layout.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty fair analysis. I think that where the grid is and where Bento is that they still provide you with the ability to have multiple elements in a single layout row, whereas when you're talking about all the other ones, it's pretty sort of monolithic in terms of like they're just it's a single stack of blocks where each thing is the thing. Yeah, so basically it's exactly that. You can achieve exactly that with the umbraco grid, and you can do the same thing with Bento as well. And that's actually where we started. And then we got a bit carried away and went, oh, what if we could do this? And what if we could do that? And like, what if we added layouts into it? But what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to go down the route of where the original grid went. We wanted to define layouts that were more than just number of columns. You know, we wanted to get a little bit more creative, and that's where CSS grid comes in and is super flexible, and it allows us to do those sort of things. So yeah.
All this talk is cheap. Should we just see something? Is that
okay? Yeah, no, that's fine. How do we share my screen? Here we go.
There's a button down the bottom.
Yeah. Okay. Share screens. Yes, I want to share my screen. That one. Okay. Cool. Cool. You can see everything. Yeah. Okay. So I've got this is just basically the Bento repo checked out and run. So anyone can get this up and running if they want to. I've just been playing around a little bit beforehand to sort of get some demo stuff sort of working. But what I'll do is I'll just go to the homepage because that gives you a pretty good overview of, well, we'll just give it a second to catch up. There we go. Of what Bento looks like when it's got content in it. So essentially, when we're looking at the Bento stack editor, which is what this is, it's made up of layouts. So each of these things that have got the blue titles on them is a layout. There's a little bit of meta at the bottom to tell you whether or not the item is currently an embedded item or whether or not it's been picked from a library. And so we can have elements that exist in a library that we can include in the layouts as well. So
those are regular content items.
There's regular content items. So they're just content items, no templates, sitting in a library because Bento has its own views, but the views are just standard views. They're just partial views that, you know, inherit standard umbraco template page with the model set to whatever the model's builder model is for that item. So it's very, very sort of follows umbraco standards and we don't bing anything. We introduce a couple extra models just to deal with like you know, what a Bento item is in the stack. So our value converter converts all of this information into a strongly typed model in its own. So layouts can basically a CSS grid. So in this case, it's just a one cell CSS grid. It goes one column, one row. Here is one with, you know, three columns in it. And in this case, we've got sorting turned on this, and we're able to move these items around. So we can move them between cells in the layout. Sorting requires all of the like permissions to be set, like so that they're all the same. All items can exist in all the rows, but I'm not really going to go too much into that.
Cell and row can have its own permission model, kind of like the grid.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And then each layout also has settings on it as well. So the layout settings are also just controlled by a document type. So when you're setting up your Bento stack editor, you select your document type that represents the settings that you want to apply to that layout. So each layout can actually have its own different settings document type if you want to. So say for instance, in some cases you go, well, these things can never have background images, then you would have like a layout setting that doesn't have background images as an option. You know, and you can put anything you want in it. So these are all just standard, you know, umbraco umbraco properties in a document type. So really easy to get set up. So that the idea with this as well was we wanted to be able to create the back office experience without touching any code. So you just install Bento, set up your document types, set up your layouts in the data type settings, and then away you go. So we've achieved that, which is really cool. And yeah, so we're using infinite editing to work with these. So at the moment, all these elements are iPublished elements. So these ones are embedded into the editor. They don't exist in the library. So it just means that we can, it's basically exactly the same as nested content. No different, really. We're just taking that item, serializing, deserializing JSON, and then just spitting out these things. So these are just document types as well. We've got Tabify turned on at the moment in this solution. We detect Tabify. I can't remember what the other one's called. Yeah, weird name, should really be changed. But we haven't tried it with that yet, so we're not really sure what happens, but we detect whether or not Tabify is in the solution, and it then tabs out all of your stuff. So here is one that is a library element. So I'll just do this again. So you've got layouts, obviously. So you pick which layout you want for your next stack item, I guess. So if we go the standard one cell one, nothing's selected yet. It gives us the option to either insert a piece of content, create a new library item, or select something from the library. So this one creates an iPublished element. This one allows us to create a library element, so we can, select the heading, or we can use one that exists in the library. And in this case, we can say, this one here. So it's the same one as I did above, but we give you a little bit of meta information down here. The ID is just showing at the moment for debug purposes, but essentially it allows us to, pick stuff and reuse it. Now, if I edit this one, it edits both because they're both the same item. But we also have this admin option down here that if you want to, you can actually convert this into an embedded item as well. So we can pin this one and it will give me, it's going to blow up. I should have tested that prior. Actually, I wonder if it's because I actually haven't allowed standard heading items in here. No, I haven't. I haven't got heading items turned on in there. But essentially, what it enables me to do is convert it to another type, and you can go from one to another and then just embed it into the block. But I won't set that
work the opposite way. So if I've created an embed,
no, it only goes from a published element to an iPublished element. Cool. It's pretty easy because essentially we're just going through and picking up all the properties and then just applying them to the other one. It looks a lot like the when you change a document type out on a document type, it gives you drop downs for all of to match things up, and if there's properties that don't exist, it just warns you and says, oh, you're about to remove stuff that's in the document that you've got nothing to convert it to, and you just go okay, and then it explodes. And those things, it doesn't explode, they just go away. But we also have this ability in here as well that if you want to, you can also change the layout from being one to another, and we can go back as well if we want to. So, and it tells us we're going from one layout that's got more cells in it than what we're going to, and we say, yeah, I'm okay with that, and it just gets rid of the second one.
Oh, that's really
because it's so in the background.
To do that, you would have to create a new row and manually move all of the items, and that's just hellish.
Yeah. So because essentially what's going on in the background here is these things are just arrays that are stored in the data. So it's just JSON arrays. So all we're doing is like applying a different layout, and it just adds in the new extra spaces in the JSON array. But that's essentially this editor, and we can drag and drop these things around as well. So if we want to change the order of the page, we can move these things up and down in the order however we want.
Visually, this looks really nice. Not just actually the editor itself, like the interactions when you click and drag, that looks awesome. But the content, how's that been done?
Okay, so let's just show you some code really quickly. So when you create a Bento item, it creates two views in the in your partial views folder. There's a Bento folder under partial views, just the way that grid used to work. And so if we're looking at the heading item element, which is the one that we've been embedding all over the place, you can see here. Oh, this is a special one. Let's go for something that's a little bit. I've gone and picked one of the more complex ones. Because this is just me applying style sheets to stuff. Yeah, ignore all that. But the most important part is this inheritance here. So they're just views. So Umbraco web, Umbraco view page, and we're just using this straight up content model. So at the moment, we've got this set in the pure live mode. So it's just using, that's why we're getting these red squiggles everywhere. Yeah. But if we were using app data models, this would all be strong typed in Visual Studio. But it creates two. So we get a front end view and we get a back office view. Okay. Both of them are exactly the same. They use the same model, exactly the same. What we've got is we've got some smarts in the back office that basically when it goes to render the back office view, we are detecting whether or not the sites, if the item has been saved, so we get the latest revision, so you get whatever has been edited, and you can it brings the preview versions back. So you can do full preview of the grid as well. But what this enables us to do is we make the barrier to entry and actually setting up your Bento views really, really basic, because it's just straight normal Umbraco templates. And you can actually do all of this in the back office through the settings section if you want to as well. So it's like, because the thing is when you set up an element in Bento in the settings section. So if we, I'll just show you here. If I set up a new demo element for just to show you what's going on, we'll just create a new one. Call it demo elements, and we've made it so that you have you've just got to create a composition that represents anything that's related to Bento. And you just got to include it. It doesn't have to have any properties on it or anything like that. You can put common properties onto it if you want to. So it might have options to hide and show things in the stack, which is what we've got on our one here. And basically, as soon as I've included this this composition on here, if I go back to Visual Studio, we should have our new demo element and our new back office one. By default, what it does is it wires it up to iPublished element, but you can convert it to your strong type model. We haven't got it to the point where it's figuring out what the kind of model is that it should be, because the models build with stuff. Yeah, it works though, but it boils down to whatever the type is, and then you can just change it out for whatever you want.
That's great. So I don't even have to worry about creating those views. The second I've marked my doc type as this is a Bento editor doc type, the views are just created.
Yeah, that's right. So and then because Bento has the two types, you've got the reusable types and you've got the element types, we actually still have to set the permissions. Like if we want this to be an element type, we've got to mark it as being an element the same way as you would with nested content or anything like that. Just so that when we are, when you're in the layout, you've got to pick what the types are. That basically just determines whether or not the the type is actually able to be created as an element, or whether or not it can be created as a reusable thing, because otherwise it just kind of confuses Umbraco a little bit. But that's basically the very basics of an element. We can just go and you can add all your properties, just a straight up document type. And as I was saying before, all your layout settings that you've got on these things as well. So if we look at the layout settings, that's just a standard document type. There's nothing special about this at all. It's just a document type, no template.
So we can attach that settings doc type and the layout doc type and compare them, bind them together and say a block in the Bento editor is these two pairs.
Yeah. So this is the configuration of the Bento stack, and essentially it's just a bunch of document types tied together and through the Bento stack. So we've got library folders, and we have to save. So before we go and create all of our elements and our items, we kind of have to do a little bit of configuration. We basically have to set up what this composition is, because this is the thing that does all of the triggering in the background. to do all of that template creation and things in the back. So essentially, after you've installed the NuGet package or you've installed it from you would come in here and create your, well, this doesn't exist. You would just come and create a new Bento stack. You would set, you would go and create your folder document types and your composition document type, and then you come in here and set these things up. And then you could go and create your elements, and then it will start automatically generating things for you in the background. So this part is a little bit confusing at the moment, but it's like if you follow the instructions, it's really straightforward and really quick to get going. And then this is like the sort of the magical part of it, where we have the layouts that are associated with this Bento stack. So you can have multiple stacks, you can have whatever you want. But if we look at this demo one here, and you notice that it's not a standard sort of layout, because this is what CSS Grid enables us to do. So like fairly complicated, heading left and right, but right spans 2 rows. And if you wanted to do that in the old doc type, in the old Umbraco Grid, kind of hard.
That's like 3 different configurations.
And it would have things inside of things, and it's like a bit mental. But in here, we don't have to do that, because essentially we can specify what the size of the widths of the columns are, or what proportion of the available space a column takes up. So we're saying here that 2 fractions for the left and 1 fraction for the right column. And so you can see here we're
dealing in CSS Grid concepts.
We're definitely 100% dealing in CSS Grid concepts. So this is all built just based on the column widths and lines of a CSS Grid. So we've even marked it out with the lines, just so that people can sort of understand what this actually refers to down here. So we've got this configuration here basically ends up building out this preview for the actual layout. So each of the areas gets an alias, and then it's up to the front-end developer what they do with those aliases and names. They can actually pull those out from the Bento stack item model, which basically a stack item in the layout basically describes this layout. So stack item is the layout, and inside of there, it's got a settings element, which refers to this document type here. So whatever the settings were saved against it based on what the properties in that document type are. And then it has an areas list or an enumerable area. And the areas are referring to the actual content elements that exist inside of each of the areas that are in the template. Okay. Then you've got some other settings down here. We can enable sort. When you've got sort enabled, every single area needs to have the same possible allowed elements or allowed content types in it, so you can shift things around inside of it. Otherwise, you would get this really weird sort of permissions nightmare if you tried to drag things around when it
and a bit confusing for editors.
100%. So you've got the option of locking it down and saying these are the things that can go in these slots and nothing else. Or you go, hey, these things can exist in any of these slots, and you can drag them around and make them whatever you want. Awesome. Now, Warren, the answer to that question is it's entirely up to you. Okay, so when you build your front end out, if you want your grids in the front end to match what's going on in the back, you build your CSS grids in the front around this. And because we've provided you with enough access to these aliases and things, you can get really clever with how you build your CSS so that you can actually name these areas and do those sort of things with it. So this demo that I'm going to show you with this demo grid here, I'll show you the code that it spits out so you can sort of see what's going on. But so then we can add areas in. So basically we just need to put in the configuration for that area. And at the moment it's telling us that sort's enabled, so we can't pick the items that can go in this area. But if we turn sort off and we went back in there, you've got the option to pick the items that can go in that area. So it's pretty flexible, but we also have to lock it down in some cases just to ensure that we've got some control over it. But and then at the moment, I've kind of got some of the back office styling turned on. Now, what back office styling is basically we're pointing it as a CSS file. There's some rules around how you build your back office styles, like wrapping everything in some sort of class that you know you can access, aka Bento or something else that you can target and be very specific with your styling. Yeah, specificity. I can't even say that word, but you know, in CSS, if you don't do it, then you can completely tank the back office. And when we first started playing with this, we were like ruining the back office with our own styles. But if I turn this off, you'll see what the stack looks like when you don't apply a style sheet. So it's, but again, the back office styling and the previews in the back here, I have to go Control F5, is entirely up to you because they're just views. So you don't, yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and you can, you know, make your previews whatever you want. We've got some versions of the site where we've just gone, client hasn't paid for it, let's make it really, really simple, you know. And you know, if we want to, if the editors want the styling in the back office, then we put the work in, you know. It's like it's entirely up to them and what they want to do. So
your style sheet applied. Okay, so a bit of alignment has changed and the fonts have changed, but really,
yeah, so it's gone to a very standard. This is what it looks like out of the box. If you use, like, I haven't really documented it yet, but there's some very basic styles. Like there's like an RTE wrapper, and there's a, you know, a card wrapper, and there's a, you know, these sort of things that you can apply these. So this is like the card wrapper, you know, and the fonts are, you know, pretty basic, but they show you exactly, you know, vaguely what your layout's going to look like. And as I said, you know, like all the preview and everything in here works. So I probably should have tested this before I got on the call, but yeah, it should work. So it should build the preview from the content, which it has. So you can see that the preview's all working and it's all fine. But what I was going to show you was, if we go to insert this big demo layout that I'm going to put in here. This is that one that had the odd sort of setup on it. So we can just throw in some elements, and we can say this is the heading one. We can insert some rich text from, we'll just grab something here. Oops, too many tabs open. Go here, create this. So we basically can build out like our content based on this, and we can just say, you know, put whatever. This is the right. I'm just going to name these things so that's really clear what they are, and then we can, you know, put in another rich text, and I'll just put footer. Okay, so that's just using those are I published elements that are all in there. So save and publish that, and we will go view that page. And I probably could have just gone and previewed it, but hey, this spins up and compiles all the changes and everything that's happened. But that's that layout that we've got there. And if I go in and show you the actual template code for that layout. Okay, so this is another thing that I should probably point out, is that layouts map directly to a view. So these views don't get automatically created. That's something that I'm working on at the moment. So when you're creating those layouts in the stack editor, in the Bento stack configuration, eventually it will automatically put them in here for you. But at the moment, if we look at the demo layout, there's a little bit of styling stuff in here just to go through. But the main thing here is that it inherits from stack item, and this stack item, if you look at that in here, has an alias because basically that's the template alias that we're dealing with. It has an enumerable of areas, and it also has a settings like property, which is just another published element as well. So you can cast that to be its strong type, and we're doing that. Down here where we're so this is just an example of where what we're doing is we're actually going one level deeper into an area and getting its settings as well, because we've got settings compositions on some of our nested elements as well. So but the main thing that's important here is we're just looping through a set of areas, and areas have a content element on them, which is basically either iPublished element or iPublished content. And we spit them out. Basically, it just maps it to its template and passes it as a model, and then it renders one of the views that we've got in our folder here. So yeah, so basically I guess the order of execution that's going on is on the home page. We're saying, we've got a render stack partial, which basically is just ignore some of my messing around. This is just me trying stuff out. The main thing here is that we're just looping over the stack items, and then we're spitting out a template. And so what I was saying before, what Warren was saying, asking was, okay, I'm getting the IDs and things here, and I'm getting the aliases of these items in the templates, and I'm actually using them to set up classes. And then in my style sheet, and I've got a layouts CSS here, so we can see the demo one here basically is pretty much the same setup as what I have in the back office. So like these are just named areas, and then based on the aliases that the areas had in the back office, I've set up styles for those and just named the areas that we're going to be plugging, basically saying what the layout is. So this basically maps it out exactly the same way it is in the back office. So it's actually really easy to go from one to the other, and then we've got like some style changes for when we go to like responsive settings for different things, and we can just go them, we now want them in one column, stack in this order. So yeah, that's the beauty and the ability that we have with CSS Grid, is that you can manipulate the order of your content so easily, and it's you can be really quite clever with it if you have a specific order that you want them in on mobile. Now that's actually one of the things that we're toying with at the moment, is that in the back office it kind of represents what the desktop view is, but what we want to do is potentially have some way to look at the actual order of the items as what they're going to be on mobile, so that you can reorder the array. Yeah,
that would be really, really slick. I know that there was some discussion on Twitter this week about how cool would it be if, like, for a different language variant you could have a different order or something. And yeah, of course it gets more and more and more complex the more layers you add onto it. But I definitely, as a use case for mobile versus desktop, changing the order, and as you say, CSS Grid makes that entirely possible.
Yeah, it's super easy, but you can get really creative with it. I mean, this is me sort of just messing around, but and it's not really that clean, but color changes and stuff like that. Well, the point of what we wanted to do is we wanted to give creativity to the editor, but keep them within brand is the main thing, and just making sure that we give them enough choice to change the things that they want to change, but don't let them go crazy with it. Like, as in we can still provide enough of what we want. And the other thing as well is that you still have the ability, if you want to just go, every layout is a single cell, and the elements that go within that cell are locked to whatever the block is that you put in it. So it's it doesn't need to be more than that. And we even went far as to say, when a cell only has one item in it, it raises whatever is in the the area to being like whatever the title is of the area, so that we can, you know, so we're not overloading the interface with stuff that's not necessary.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted to make sure that we were able to do that. And then the other thing as well is you can actually use Bento items on their own as a single editor. So if you want to, you can say, oh, I want to only have a, you know, this is like to set, you know, whatever it is for the header of the page. So it's something that's above the fold, for instance, or, you know, whatever the header area is, you can actually set up a complex Bento area just to do that part of the page if you want to.
That's super powerful. So you can create a lot of reusable components that can then be used across many parts of your site. And in this case, this is just an embedded published element.
That's right. So you can, it's a single complicated thing in one property, as opposed to going, I need to have a stack with one item in it. I can just go, I just want one item. And so we just use that one element on its own.
Okay. I'm blown away. This is all truly awesome. And I know you've been working on this for a long time, teasing it for a long time. It's finally available to download.
Yeah.
You can get it on our Umbraco, and you have very kindly put all of this amazing work out for free. There's a donation button, and I think you probably deserve a couple of.
We're waiting for GitHub to turn on our donation sponsor stuff at the moment, and it's but yeah, you're welcome to send me money. I don't mind. But I mean, we've got a long way to go. I mean, we're still working on the variance side of things at the moment, so that for language variants, we know what we've got to do. We know where it sits, especially for reusable elements. It's a little bit harder. We're trying to work out a way of doing that for iPublished elements at the moment. Been chatting with Shannon. I think you were on the call the other night, and like we kind of got to the point where Shannon was like, "Oh yeah, we'd like to be able to do that, but not sure how to do it."
Yeah. And with all of this stuff, it can get so complex, so when we're talking about, okay, varying position of content, an object in an array, and then saying, well, that object might have 3 or 4 versions because you might have language variants. And then, as you were saying, oh, we're going to have a different order on mobile. And it's like, okay, we've now got n number of incarnations this could be. I know Shannon was talking about how do we handle things like validation and more advanced stuff in future, like maybe publishing and unpublishing blocks or whatever. It's hugely complex. So
yeah, that's right.
This looks like an amazing start, and I think I said the other night, I wish this is kind of what I wish the grid was all along. And with the flexibility and the editing experience, and actually the developer experience from the files that it creates and the way you interact with it in a strongly typed way and whatever. And I think we're going to see this going forward with a lot of these block-esque editors, because Marcin this week did a really nice write-up of block type editors. So nested content, doc type grid editor in grid, and then potentially some of the new ones, perplex content blocks with previews and stuff, Bento, and then the upcoming block editor, which is going to be very different to what you've created. Block list, which is coming with 8.7, is going to be more stacked content, nested content-esque, whereas yours is more of a more advanced layout builder, and that's okay. I think there's space for all of these different options.
Yeah, I think it's horses for courses. It just really depends on what you're trying to achieve. I mean, for instance, you could throw one of those other block editors into this as a cell. So the possibilities are pretty far-reaching. But yeah, I'm just really interested in. I mean, the one thing that we wanted to stay away from is that we wanted to. It's just that lower the barrier to entry. We don't want people having to write Angular code, you know, because the thing is as soon as you start making people have to learn Angular and you know, also write templates, people get scared. And so it's like we wanted to make sure that, okay, this is just dealing with concepts that you know, a .NET web developer understands. And yeah, we've got some really interesting stuff that we're sort of playing with at the moment, and especially I got talking to like Jesper order I can't even say his last name, but we were talking the other night, and he was like, yeah, we're doing some stuff with Next.js, and I'm like, yeah, we're trying something with Next.js at the moment that takes all of this, because we've got like a static file output caching thing that we're working on at the moment that goes with this, where it basically takes the entire output of what the stack is, and just caches it to a static file so that it doesn't have to even process it. So, and that cache gets invalidated on the fly by, save and publish the same way it normally would. It just basically blows away the file, and it keeps like a time code file to say, what's changed. But it's there's some, the future for me is I'm like going, okay, how can we take this and decouple the CMS from the output, run that static, but still keep it so that you can run it local and fully dynamic.
That's really interesting. And may I add, an amazing segue onto a release that was done this week, which is Yuzu, another Japanese name as well. Amazing. Yuzu is something that Phil Whitaker in the UK has been talking about for a long time. And this is effectively the idea of decoupling the content and your kind of content architecture from your front end rendering. So as you were saying there, wanting to be able to manipulate your structure and your layout, but have completely static. In this case, it does everything with handlebars. So and it will render that for you, kind of on the fly, map everything across. And it looks really, really cool. We'll get Phil on at some point to do a demo, but he's got examples of where this is working, mapping Umbraco properties over to front end static stuff. And I see no reason why it couldn't be possible to make that work with Bento either.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's just quickly run through some other releases. So we had this week has been a mega week for like brand new releases. Of course, we had Bento, Yuzu, also brand new. Contentment is Lee's humongous.
Been waiting so long for this. Been waiting forever. We were talking about this at Code Garden last year, and he was like, this is what I'm working on.
So we have a beta now of the version 1 release, and that's available for download and to test out. And this includes the data list and some of the pickers. It doesn't include a block-based editor because I think Lee's going to wait and see what happens with the core ones. But this is awesome. And another thing that people have been waiting for a long time, or at least this has been talked about, is cloud search indexes. And this is also now possible. So this week, ExaminX was officially released. I think it's been online for a while. I've known about this for a while. And it's created by a completely anonymous developer that we can't work out the name.
We don't know.
But yeah, this sdkits.com site has the details about ExaminX and an integration with Azure Search, and it will basically offload your indexes. It's a premium product, but I think the price is well worth it for the kind of sites running this sort of thing on.
And that one's super awesome if you're doing like load balancing.
Yeah,
because one of the biggest problems with the Examine on load balancing on standard stuff is just your indexing sucks. So this is super cool.
Exactly. Final release I had earmarked was something new from Anders Bjarne, Skybrid Separator, which is just a really nice way of kind of being able to split up your doc types into almost groups within groups, which looks pretty cool. Can imagine it would be helpful for creating certain editor experiences. And did you see this? Matt Brailsford teasing more awesome stuff.
Yeah, I did.
This is Fluidity for V8 in development last weekend.
Yeah. I am looking forward to this because we have a client who heavily uses Fluidity for one of their very, very custom form builders that we built for them, and we can't move to V8 until this is done. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be epic. I guess there's no ETA right now. This is just the beginning, but yeah, this looks truly cool. And the other thing that we were teased with this week, which I am equally quite happy about, is Bjarke showed the Umbraco back office kind of running on .NET Core. A lot of the back office controllers are broken, but at least you can navigate around the back office, and it's rendering and it's running. So there's it's getting there. It's coming.
Yeah, I see that as like a transitional phase as well, because if they can get the current back office Angular 1 running on core, it's the equivalent of what Umbraco 6 was to the V7 core in terms of like where that transition phase for moving through a phase where essentially there's a lot of hard work that people have put into stuff in the back office as it is now, and to get a core version running and have that option is just going to be mega awesome, because it means that we can sort of not throw the baby out with the bathwater and completely screw the step. I think it's kind of like I'm assuming that the core version is version 9.
So, I mean, there's always been this, we're not going to commit to what version it's going to be, but it's obviously going to be the next major. And I believe,
it has to be.
If you check out the code, the assembly versions have all been updated to Umbraco 9.0. So let's assume that it will be V9.
Yeah, because I'm assuming they're going to release, they'll just not go to 10 and they just call it Examine X. And Umbraco X when they get to 10, when it goes new back office.
Yeah, like following the Windows naming, Umbraco 8.1, and then Umbraco 10, and then just a epithermal, whatever, evergreen version of Umbraco.
Yeah, that's right. We're never doing another major again. This is it.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Let's just quickly wrap up. We've been talking a while, but this has been amazing. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of other things that have happened in the Umbraco world this week. Of course, we mentioned already that we had a virtual Australian meetup earlier in the week. I was really lucky to dial into that, and it was great to talk to the Australian community. Having spent some time over there last year, I actually really missed it, so it was good. But yesterday in London, we had another virtual event, our biggest virtual event ever, in fact, with people from, I think, about 12 countries joined. And Rachel Breeze did an amazing accessibility talk, which the slides are shared, so I highly recommend checking those out. The other thing was we had CodePatch a couple of weeks back, and now all of those videos of talks are released, and they're on the Umbraco community YouTube. There'll be a link below. You mentioned earlier, Pete, about Niels's bartender, and he actually did a kind of a talk about that, so you can go and watch that on the YouTube channel. Okay. Final couple of things I had was uProfile from June. We have Shishav, who's featured this week. He's been using Umbraco since 2009, and I think we don't really get to hear too much from the Indian Umbraco community. So it's amazing to see finally someone from India being featured on uProfile. I'd love to see people from India being awarded for their community efforts as well. So this is a good first step, I think. I saw this blog post from Louis Jackson Rees in the UK. His journey of growing from an Umbraco developer, or starting out as a front-end developer, becoming an Umbraco developer, and moving on to C# and .NET Core, and how the Umbraco world has helped him. This is a really, really nice read, and I resonate with a lot of the stuff that he's saying in here. So fantastic work there, Louis. And the final couple of things. Oh, go on.
I was going to say, as it was for me, Umbraco was a gateway drug. Got me into .NET because I actually started out as a Flash developer and front-end developer, and then made my way through. Umbraco 2 is where I started building a CMS to run, a Flash app. My first forum posts on the Yahoo groups, which they've now shut down, and I can't find the post anymore, but it was back in 2005, I think 2006. So
history. Amazing. Final couple of things where we have 2 new hires at Umbraco HQ. Welcome Adriana, who's now part of the Fish Tank, and we have Christian, whose official title is People, Love and Culture, which I think is a friendly way of saying HR. But yeah, he's in charge of culture at Umbraco HQ, and that's lovely. And the final thing, which is a bit of sad news, is that KØBEN is yet another COVID-19 casualty in the Umbraco events world. I know that you were busy planning UDUF, and unfortunately that couldn't happen. And KØBEN is the same. So we won't be seeing it in 2020, but it'll be back in 2021. I think, like most other events, I don't think there's going to be anything this year, unfortunately.
No.
Whew. Wow. What a busy
yeah.
There is a lot of stuff in there. Pete, thank you so much. The demo was truly amazing. I need to go and have a proper play with Bento, I think. And there's a bunch of people in the chat. I know Warren was saying he's going to go and have a play too. So go and check Bento out. It's available for download in all good places.
Yes, and contribute.
And contribute.
Yeah, like I mean, we're using it. We're using it. We eat our own code, so like we're always working on it. But yeah, we're looking for input from others as well, because we think it can be awesome. So yeah.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah. Cool. Pete, thank you for giving up your Friday evening. Go grab a beer, enjoy it, put your feet up.
I just got my new whiskey, so I'll go.
Oh, I saw. Yeah. Time for a whiskey then.
Yeah.
But thank you. It's been great, and have an awesome weekend.
Yeah, you too. Hey, thanks.
Great. Cool. See you, everyone.